What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JFlood201, and I'm back with a live reaction for everybody. All right, so big news coming out of Englishtown, New Jersey. All right, John Alite was arrested by New Jersey officials, not by the feds, from what I understand, right? By New Jersey, like probably state police and other officials. Certainly the charges being brought against him are by a district attorney in New Jersey for what is essentially loan sharking, right? We're going to get into the charges here. Okay, so what he's actually been arrested with is corporate misconduct, extortion, and I believe like threats, right? So like maybe terroristic threats or something like that. We can read the charges. All right. So alleged loan sharking. Okay. But let's start off by like why this is interesting. Okay. And I've seen a lot of the mob channels on YouTube and on Instagram react to this news, all with great takes. Great takes. Mob Facts Daily did a great job, or Mobsters Daily did a great job. Mafia hitman turned suburban New Jersey councilman John Alite was arrested on loan sharking charges. That's the big headline. All right, so I'm just going to read what the AP News has put out. And again, this is from Mobsters Daily on Instagram. John Alite spent decades building a reputation as one of the most feared associates connected to the Gambino crime family. A close associate of John Gotti Jr., Alite later admitted involved in murders, shootings, armed robberies, and other crimes like assault, things like that, before eventually cooperating with federal authorities and testifying against members of organized crime. We're talking about, what's that phrase? Made men. Testifying against made men. These guys are not gangbangers, right? These guys are not, it's not as serious as maybe like testifying against the cartel. But still, he was testifying against made members of the mafia. And something even more interesting to consider is that he himself was a member of these social groups. Okay? So this is not a citizen turning, turning guys that are worse than him over to the police. That's probably how he sold it to the government, but this is a guy who was testifying on friends and associates, right? People he worked for, people he worked with, fellow criminals in the organization. All right. After serving prison time, Alite reinvented himself as an author, a motivational speaker, a podcaster. In fact, I liked his podcast myself. I was a big fan. I've actually talked to John over Instagram DM a couple of times. Nothing major. Some motivational words of encouragement. When he was elected to the town council position. Certainly, I don't think I ever bought his book. I bought Gene Borello's book. And I've spoken to Gene also. But the Gene and John podcast was a very interesting, I'm just going to say that. It really is. It's an interesting insight into the life of some of the more hardened criminals that ended up, cooperating with the government. And so for the record, I want to put this out there. I don't think there's anything wrong with cooperating with the government, right? This idea of like being a rat. I think, though, that it's different when you testify against people you made money with, people that you considered you a friend, and people that trusted you, right? I'm a super civilian now, and we're going to get into why I can relate to what's going on so well. First off, let's just start by saying that, I lived in Englishtown while he was a councilman. One of the first places that I moved to when my own probation got approved, right? after my charges, right? After my arrest, I got probation out of Bergen County, transferred it to Middlesex County, and lived in Englishtown for a while. One of the first jobs that I ever got was work, on probation, sober, changing my life and turning it around for the first time as I was living in Englishtown, and I would commute to Monmouth County and work for the Monmouth County Parks Department. All right, so I lived in the town while he was an elected official. This is somebody that, quote unquote, represented the greater community, and some of the good things that he did do was like awareness around drugs and alcohol, and advocating for things like recovery court and sobriety, which I'm a huge advocate of. I'm all for that. You know what I mean? At the time, I thought that he was not a real politician, and I still, I think that this kind of confirms it, right? He took what is essentially a vacant seat. A vacant seat is when like someone either dies or like has to vacate the seat, right? Can no longer run for the position, but it's already been won by like a certain party. It had been controlled by the Republicans. He took a vacant Republican seat within the town council in Englishtown. Something to consider is that Englishtown is a Republican stronghold. There's a lot of conservatism in Monmouth County, Middlesex County, the surrounding areas, and also just in South Jersey in general, or like what I would consider middle to South Jersey. Why I'm getting into that is I can relate to it. I can relate to turning your life around, wanting to be a better person, wanting to be on YouTube, for example. I'm on YouTube. I'm doing reactions, right? He's kind of emboldening that space and pushing that space forward for people like myself. Some things to consider, though, is that he always carried with him that tough guy reputation. I myself have dropped that completely. I think there comes a time, and even I'm watching it with Gene Borrello. He struggles to drop it, but ultimately Gene Borrello is not, it would be foolish for him to maintain the tough guy attitude. You're no longer in the life. John should have no longer been in the life. I'm not saying that he's guilty, because he's innocent until proven guilty, right? But let's just consider the view of the government for a second. Right? You turn your life around, you become a podcaster, you become a motivational speaker, an author. You start doing like these an influencer, for example, right? And then you get elected or appointed to a council seat, because I think he was appointed. I don't think he had to win an election. Again, remember, it was a vacant seat. He gets appointed to that position in Englishtown and becomes essentially a local official. You really now have to step into those shoes. So if you did still have friends in the life, or you're still talking about being a tough guy and all this stuff, you got to drop it. You got to drop it and go 100%, both feet into the water, jump into the deep end with your new career, your new path in life. And one of the things that we have to recognize as people who maybe used to get fast money or like chase fast money, because I'm not going to sit around and say like I made a bunch of money being a criminal. That's not true, right? But some of these mob guys might have, right? You're going to take a pay cut. You're going to take a pay cut. You're not chasing fast money anymore. You're a business owner, you're a homeowner. You are now a representative of your community. You got to start caring about other people and not about yourself. And I think that selfishness goes to the core of criminality in some of this stuff, like being a loan shark, for example. Is loan sharking the worst crime? No. Is it illegal? Yes. Is it a bad idea? Yes. Why be a loan shark when you're a freaking town councilman? What? Influence elections. Run for a greater position. He's got pictures, with Trump and stuff, and he's got a wide audience on YouTube where he can talk about policy and influence general opinions within that community. Englishtown, Monmouth County, New Jersey, and New Jersey loves guys like mobsters, bikers, you know what I mean? Like the kind of like criminal adjacent, if you will, right? Like, oh, he's a bad guy, but he's not the worst. He's not, you know. But here's the thing is he was. He's not Gene Borello. Gene Borello was a tough guy, you know, a soldier. This guy was a enforcer. He participated in unalivings, right? Whether or not he did it himself, or he was the getaway driver, or he set the guy up, or did whatever, he participated in those really those you know, capital crimes, right? And that's why I kind of like guys like Borello, because they're still figuring themselves out. They're still young, and they are who they are, right? Like they're unabashed about being who they are, but you can kind of understand where they're coming from. Like the kid didn't want to do 20 years for lighting some guy's car on fire, but John Alite, it's like, dude, you were. It's the kettle calling the pot black. It's like, it's wild when you start to think about some of the stuff that John Alite did and then had an opportunity to turn his life around. So we're going to get into that, right? Let's finish the AP report. So after serving prison time, Alite reinvented himself as an author, motivational speaker, podcaster, and public figure who frequently spoke about leaving the mob life behind. In 2025, that transformation reached an unlikely milestone when he was appointed to a council seat in Englishtown, New Jersey, with local officials citing his community involvement and advocacy efforts. That's the New York Post. The redemption story took another dramatic turn this week. New Jersey authorities arrested Alite on charges that include theft by extortion, loan sharking related offenses, corporate misconduct, and terroristic threats. So we were right about what those other charges included, the terroristic threats. Prosecutors allege that he participated in an illegal lending scheme while Alite's attorneys insist he's innocent. Says the allegations will not hold up in court. We will see. And he is innocent until proven guilty. And let's hope that, you know, this is all some sort of crazy misunderstanding. As of now, the charges remain allegations and have not been proven. But now we're going to start talking about those allegations, and I'm going to give you my insight. In Englishtown, he was admired. He was admired. People liked having him around. People thought that his backstory was cool. He got cool points for being an ex-mobster, and here's what I mean by that. All right. Did he fit in with the big wigs and like the Republican ticket? No. In the age of Donald Trump, though, where being a strong man is part of being a politician, where politics is a winner-takes-all environment, they do. So he fits in with the MAGA crowd, not the traditional conservatives, not kind of like your typical suburban politicians. But what is important to remember is that the guys at the pizza shops loved him. The guys at the mechanic shops loved him. You're kind of like average Joe, hardworking guy from you know, some sort of like, even though they're white, they have like some immigrant background in their lineage, right? Whether they're Irish, whether they're Italian, whether they're Albanian, right? Like those kind of like average Joes in and around that Monmouth County area loved the guy. All right. If he walked into the pizza shop, everybody's saying, "Hey, John, how you doing? How are things?" Another thing to consider is that he has, you know, family that I believe are embedded into the community. And what I mean by that is there was a certain point in Alite's criminal past where he moved to Philadelphia and South Jersey. He set up shop in Philly. He owned a valet parking business, right? And he made a lot of money doing that. And, you know, obviously he used that to kind of like get, you know, money, right? To like funnel illegal proceeds into these legitimate businesses. We'll talk about that. Here it is. So in the mid-1990s, Alite relocated to the Philly area where he owned homes in suburbs like Cherry Hill and Voorhees Township. Those are not in Philadelphia. Those are not in Pennsylvania. Those are New Jersey townships. Okay? New Jersey townships. All right? South Jersey, Atlantic City. That's the area that he started to kind of feel comfortable in, and he set up shop in that era. So when he did get out after cooperating and needing to rebrand himself, it's far away enough from the city, and the Philly thing has kind of collapsed, right? The war of the Philly mob is over by the time he gets out. I'm not saying that the Philly mafia doesn't exist, but it's not like moving to the heart of Bensonhurst or something where you're going to feel like more of a social pariah, right? And I don't know if that's how it exists now. I'm just guessing what it would be like to move to Arthur Avenue as a government cooperator. You know what I mean? Because Arthur Avenue is now all Albanian also. Not entirely, but the Bronx, those strong Italian neighborhoods are no longer really the stronghold that they once were for what was at a time, the mafia or the mob or kind of like even just your rough and tumble Italian neighborhood. All right. So he goes to this English town area, and, he embeds himself. He's got kids, he's got a wife, he's got cousins, he's got, I think, I don't know about his family, but let's see if it's here in the thing. Children. He's got 5 kids. See, that's what I'm talking about. And I know some of them are boys. So if you can imagine being the son of John Alite, growing up in a place like Englishtown, New Jersey, and being like something like a student athlete, like, on the lacrosse team or on the football team or on the baseball team, and needing to fit in this age of hypermasculinity, right? Where, and your dad's a MAGA guy, right? And your dad is a rough and tumble, guy. He is, for lack of better words, a reformed thug, or at least he's trying to be, right? It must be hard, and you're gonna fall right into that kind of like, all right, I'm gonna wear my varsity jacket. I'm gonna hang out with the boys. Like, we're gonna get a pool in the backyard, and we're gonna have cookouts in the summer. We're gonna like be that American family, right? And you gotta love that, because that's his inroad. That's where everybody's gonna love that. The kids are gonna get a lot of friends. That is every small town kid who's just cisgender, who's like a straight, white, athletic, normal kid growing up in the suburbs, especially in an area like Englishtown. That's how they all feel. That's how I felt when I was in high school. You know what I mean? I wanted to drive around in my new car. I wanted to hook up with girls. I wanted to wear my varsity jacket. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be understood. I wanted to be, for lack of a better words, like your typical American boy. You know what I mean? And that's wonderful, because it's that where he fits in with the community at large. It's reasons like that where he can walk into the pizza shop and everybody's like, "Hey, John, how you doing? What's going on with the family? How are the kids? I saw him throw the football the other day. He did great. How many yards did he get running?" or whatever. Because that's what it was like for me growing up. I grew up in these same towns. I know what it's like. All right? I'm telling you that is the American experience. There's nothing more New Jersey and American than like John Alite being let out of jail as a cooperator, a former mobster who was involved in unalivings, who was involved in capital crimes, and being able to rebrand himself, be the underdog, and come out on top. But here's where it goes sour, right? And so we're going to watch this news piece.
No, we're talking about this story out of New Jersey. What a story this is. A former mob enforcer who once admitted to multiple murders and dozens of shootings is now facing a new set of criminal allegations. We got this headline from NJ.com. Take a look. Ex-mobster, who's now a New Jersey councilman, threatened victim with a baseball bat to the head. That's what police say. Englishtown councilman, his name is John Alite. John Alite. I'm going to talk to Brianna Kudish, who has been tracking this story. Brianna, I don't know if I pronounced this right. I realized as I was reading his name that I wasn't sure exactly how to pronounce his name. Brianna, you've covered this story. What a fascinating story this is, from the moment he was elected. Brianna, just tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about this crazy case.
Yeah, Dan, thanks so much for having me. So I am an Price reporter at NJ.com. We cover statewide news in New Jersey. And so last spring, when John Alite was appointed to the Englishtown.
Hey, have you been researching
Oh,
dental
come
implants?
on.
Did you know you
Come
can now get permanent
on.
teeth in just 24
I
hours?
start paying for the whatever version of YouTube. Sorry, guys.
Municipal council. I spoke with him, I profiled him, and we ended up chatting in his backyard just about his crazy life
He had a great
and
backyard.
what had led him to joining the
He
local
has.
government there.
I don't know why. I said
So his background is just fascinating, and we'll
All
get
right,
to
all right.
that in
This
just a
is-
second.
come on, this is a
But
bad take
an
here.
admitted hitman who became a New Jersey council member. So
know
talk
this
us
stuff.
through what we know about these charges.
Yeah, so on Friday, the New Jersey Attorney General's office announced that they had arrested him and charged him with multiple counts of extortion, loan sharking, and terroristic threats. And he was accused of making loans at excessive rates and then threatening violence per the AG's office. So, and he was also accused of using his company, which is called Straightened Out Entertainment, to promote his criminal scheme, according to prosecutors.
And so much of this sounds like, it's like a cliche mafia charge, the loan sharking and the strong arming people and threatening them with a bat. Can you talk just a little bit more about these charges? I mean, what we know, was he sort of like were people coming to him for gambling debts, and then for gambling, and then they got in trouble with the debts, and it seems like classic, cliche mafia
that is
charges.
Interesting. What's the gambling overlap?
Yeah,
because there is a lot of gambling charges that have been coming out. 67 of Bridgewater was also arrested today and charged with usury, conspiracy, allegedly agreeing to receive interest on loans in excess. So yeah, Lacatondo. He's got other people that have been charged with him.
still unclear. There wasn't a ton in the criminal complaint, but it did say that, several weapons were found in his home. And when New Jersey State Police came to his home on Friday
They found weapons in his home. I doubt he's supposed to have those.
to arrest him, they found 6 baseball bats, metal knuckles, an expandable baton, knives, and that he also sought out victims' addresses to see them in person over the loan. So again, super not clear on the details of the loans or
She's such a millennial or whatever. She said super not clear.
what the circumstances were surrounding those. But according to prosecutors,
All right, so not a lot here, if I can be honest. I don't have a lot of tolerance for this thing. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. But let's get into some of the more interesting parts of the allegations and charges. So there are other co-conspirators who have been arrested with him. Something to understand is that this is super New Jersey, right? He, this is a Monmouth County thing. Englishtown is in Monmouth County. The Republican Party embraced him. Okay, he becomes kind of like a rebranded man, and for the most part, while he was considered a tough guy and having a temper and kind of like a jerk, right? Maybe even some might say an a-hole, right? He wasn't considered a criminal anymore, right? As far as I know, I had heard through the grapevine that because he was being embraced by the Republican Party, he kind of started to feel more emboldened, right? And I'm wondering if that's when things ramped up. The the locals started looking into him further, and this racketeering and conspiracy and extortion and loan sharking, came to light. Because what I have heard from one of the sources that covers this, we're going to go to their page now, is the Sit Down Crime podcast. This guy's great, absolutely wonderful. I love his podcast. I love his content. So shout out to him. We're going to watch his 2 little quick videos that he's posted to Instagram about it, right? So, of course, there was the news that broke, okay?
If you've been on YouTube, you've likely seen John Alite. John Alite is a former Gambino mob family associate and eventual government informant. He recently, over the last several years, became a councilman in New Jersey. Well, he's just been arrested by the New Jersey State Attorney General. Let's talk about it. According to a source that I have out of New Jersey, Alite was picked up today alongside an associate of his for loan sharking, theft by extortion, as well as terroristic threats and other charges. According to what I know, Alite was essentially giving out loans, and then when people didn't pay, he was threatening them and doing other things that he used to do in the world of the mob. Now, Alite has threatened me in the past. He's also been on YouTube for the last several years talking tough and then trying to tell us that it's all about the kids and he's a changed man. He's also become a bit of a cult figure in Albanian culture.
All right. Oh, I wanted to watch that.
Breaking news.
Sorry, shit. How do I fast forward to the fucking... All right. So, yeah, the one of the things to take away from that is that he started to become kind of a figure in Albanian, like a micro celebrity within Albanian tough guys, criminals, stuff like that, and even just like Albanian pride. So just like guys who like love the Albanian flag and like are identify as like Albanian Americans and are just like, I think even this guy is Albanian. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure though that he himself is Albanian. So this is an Albanian guy doing the Sit Down Crime podcast. So, it's telling him that he thinks this guy is a jerk, that he always kind of had it coming. Well, at least that's the attitude I'm picking up from him. I will be honest that I myself was fooled at a certain point because being a New Jerseyan, we grow up around the Pernas. We grow up around the Alites of the world. We grow up around guys that used to be, in the mob. And as I say it, and or still are in the case of the Pernas, what I mean by that is it's like part of New Jersey lore, like The Sopranos. You know what I mean? I grew up in Bergen County, not living here, or near Monmouth County. I don't live in Monmouth County. But like when I did, right? The point I'm making is that I grew up in Bergen County. In Bergen County, there's a town called Lodi, and that's where the Bada Bing is, right? In Sopranos, if anybody's seen Sopranos. So like, you grow up in an environment that is right next to New York City. When I'm coming of age, John Gotti's on the news, right? These guys are bigger than life. You know what I mean? These guys are bigger than life. They are the hometown heroes. They are the cowboys. The kind of like anti-heroes that we adopt and look up to in the sense of like this American ideal of like not being okay with things, this code of silence and taking what is yours, right? Which is, I think, something that all Americans can kind of relate to in this idea of like needing to make your own path in life. Obviously, now myself and all of us are law-abiding citizens, and so we do it within the constraints of the law and the capital system that we have in front of us, the free market, right? But you admire those who are willing to bend or break the rules to get done what they need to get done in order to take what is theirs or what they deserve. And so that's why these guys can foster, a fandom, right? That's how these guys thrive. And then, like I said, once they have a family, there's nothing like, like the Pernas, their sons were big wrestlers. I was a wrestler. So it's like, you see them at the matches, you see them at the tournament, and suddenly they're like a micro celebrity, but they almost like become an identity of you being from a working class suburb. I'm from a working class suburb. My parents got to scrape together and earn, and work, and like we all deserve that kind of like better life, and these guys are willing to go take it. And so you kind of admonish them for that. It's the same idea with like the bikers. And so something I did want to talk about or briefly touch on is in Monmouth County, Middlesex County, and in South Jersey, bikers are huge. Like, I think in Monmouth County specifically, there's like the chapter or like the whatever, the mother club for the pagans motorcycle club in Jersey anyway. The New Jersey mother chapter is in Monmouth County, from what I understand. I think it's in Red Bank. You know what I mean? Something else to keep in mind is that, there's a lot of other bike clubs in that area. You know what I mean? And bikers have always thrived for these same ideas. They fit in with the common man, with the working class, but then they also are outside the constraints of the law, and we watch videos of them being busted by the feds. And so that's why you're going to have people praising John, hoping for him to get out, and backing him, even though he has this littered past with both criminality and cooperation, which makes for a very shady individual.
I have some breaking and exclusive news that you're only...
Okay, so here we're going to talk about some things. I like this comment too. We're going to get into this comment about how some of the reason he's targeted and some of the ideas as to why people believe he's targeted might have to do with his political affiliations. New Jersey is and has been a Democrat stronghold for a long time. That being said, it's going more and more purple with the South Jersey, Middle New Jersey area, but all the big parts of Jersey with the highest and most dense populations are still thriving Democratic strongholds. I don't think we're going to see a New Jersey governor or like big seat go to a Republican for a long time. It's not like these places like Georgia, and parts of Texas where it's like, you see those areas getting purple and you're like, maybe in the next election cycle. I don't think so. Certainly not with Texas either, I don't think. But Georgia's an interesting place as Atlanta gets more and more diverse. You're watching it turn purple. The stronghold areas, of course, for being blue, are the densely populated areas. Bergen County, Essex County, Newark, New Brunswick, right? Like areas like that. They're huge Democratic strongholds. So some of the idea is that because we bring in this new Democrat, Mikey Sherrill, right? She's going to re-look at people who are vocally attacking her, one of whom we would assume is a guy with a huge reach, even though he's not in a powerful political position. He influences the masses and certainly that common man. As we said, he fits in with everybody. The guys at the pizza shop love him and are going to listen to him, even though he really has no idea about politics. He's a Trump and MAGA supporter and is very, very outspoken about that. So now with a new governor who's a Democrat, right? Suddenly he's arrested and being investigated again. Are these coincidences? Probably not. Was he going to get popped anyway because he was acting reckless? Probably, right? Like almost definitely, because it's not like these accusations and arrests just fell out of the air. John Alite in the past has been known to do this and behave like this. He has a criminal record already for this and has done worse things. So the idea that he couldn't adjust and go both feet into being a new person and really all about helping the community is not a shocker to anyone, which is why the government has such a strong case and why most of us who cover this genre believe what the government is accusing him of. But let's go into it. This is the second video from the Sit Down Crime podcast. You gotta love it. He's back again. We're gonna listen to what he was saying. And this comes from one of his sources about how he's not getting bail. Like his bail is getting denied and he's on remand. He's gonna have to remain incarcerated until trial or until his lawyers are able to, curry some favor and essentially appeal the fact that he's not being let out on pre-trial detention or anything like that, which most people would get if it was their first offense, certainly in New Jersey, for something that is a non-violent crime. While he's threatening people, he didn't actually hurt anybody, right? But let's see as to why they're going to deny his ask for bail or pre-trial release.
Only going to hear from me about the recent arrest at the state level of John Alite. Now, as many know, John Alite has for years been on YouTube discussing his exploits as a mob associate in the 80s and 90s and eventually became a government informant. Now he parades himself all over YouTube. He recently became a councilman, but he was pinched recently for extortion, terroristic threats, and other charges. Well, he's being held on bail. Now, that's not exactly exclusive, but the reason why he's being held on bail, according to a source I was told that directly the reason Mr. Alite is being held is one act that he made where one of the debtors that owed him, he can be seen on the debtor's Ring doorbell at the debtor's home screaming and whining into the camera, discussing money that he's owed. From what I understand, the state of New Jersey has that footage, and they believe he is a real danger to society. John Alite has major problems in this case, and if we're to believe the government, he is going to go to prison for his behavior. And let's remember, this is the same guy who, by his own account, has a history of beating people up with baseball bats, stabbing, shooting. He's even threatened me. He said at one point he wanted to beat me with a baseball bat. This guy is a danger to society, and it seems that the government believes so too. And let's just be honest, it's because they have the Ring doorbell footage of him acting like a nutcase. John must still think it's the 90s where we don't have Ring doorbell footage. But John, every house has them now, and it looks like that debtor was a little worried, so he kept that Ring doorbell footage. I have some breaking and...
All right, so what the sit-down is insinuating is that there is footage that has not been released. He probably has, guys that are in the New Jersey police force that give him intel. And some of the intel that they're giving him is saying that they have a video of Ring doorbell footage where John is going off on one of the people that owes him money. You know what I mean? Just completely going off on him. Threatening him, has a bat with him, and is acting like a total nut job. If that's the case, then that's very damning evidence, right? There has been some footage released by John himself, of the doorbell, of the Ring doorbell, of them coming to arrest him, in which they have like 30 state troopers in SWAT gear, all just to knock on his door, which is pretty absurd. And you know what I mean? There's a lot to digest there. You know what I mean? Is this a personal beef between the sit-down and John? John's been a jerk to him and even threatened him, from what we're supposed to believe and understand from the sit-down, which I believe. And you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, is it just egos going back at each other? Or is this guy finally eating humble pie? You know what I mean? Is John getting what he deserves in some way, shape, and form? Something that I want to reiterate is I don't wish anything bad on anybody. I certainly don't wish jail time on anybody. It seems like Alite has the capacity to change if he can truly embrace it and jump both feet first into that role. He was certainly given a lot of responsibility and embodied some of the things that we do want to see in people who turn their life around. He was an inspiration at one point to people like myself who are trying to do that exact thing. Anyway, so something that's interesting, and the last thing I'm going to talk about before ending the video, guys, is that he's being held in Bergen County Jail. He is not being held in Monmouth County Jail or Middlesex County Jail. Some of the larger, you know what I mean? Well, these are large. They're not larger than Bergen County Jail. What I mean is that he's not. Where he lives, usually that has jurisdiction. Where you're arrested has jurisdiction. Where the crime took place has jurisdiction. So from what we're supposed to understand, these were other people in and around him. Like, he wasn't like traveling to go do these things. At least that's not being alleged in the criminal complaint. So why is he being held in Bergen County Jail? We're going to get into that right now. Okay. So he's being held in Bergen County Jail. Even though he is an English town resident. So you would think he would be in Monmouth County. So we're going to talk about Bergen County Jail, someplace that I've been myself. Some of the things that I noticed while being there is that they send a lot of the high risk or big cases, high profile, big media cases to Bergen County Jail. So Bergen County Jail has the capacity to hold thousands of inmates and operates multiple security levels from the lowest to the highest, including maximum security units for dangerous and disruptive individuals. This is probably where Alite is going to be held. This makes it a practical choice for housing high-risk defendants who require close supervision. Some of you who like my channel or have watched any of my content in the past probably realize that I cover New Jersey stuff and that I'm a big fan of Al Bial. Al Bial was being held on an attempted murder in Bergen County Jail, even though he was from Essex County. A lot of the high-profile Essex County guys get pushed over to Bergen County, and I've always wondered why. All right, so here they kind of break it down. Legal and social factors. In New Jersey, certain crimes, especially those involving harming a law enforcement officer or a violent offense, or, here we go, here it is, folks, repeat convictions. Talk about a repeated conviction, right? John Alite is a huge celebrity within the world of the mafia, the world of podcasting and YouTube and stuff like that. And he's also definitely a repeated conviction case. Even though he was a cooperator, he also admitted and pled guilty to a lot of those crimes, to all of those crimes from what I understand, are more likely to result in pretrial detention. So, pretrial detention means that your bail or whatever, your pretrial release is being denied and you are being detained until your trial. Bergen County's jail system is designed, okay, so there it is in plain English. Bergen County's jail system is designed to handle such cases. Its location is a densely populated, high-traffic area. It means it is often the default facility for serious offenders. I myself had some very serious charges when I was there. One was dropped. The most serious one was dropped, and I pled or used a plea agreement to plead out to a lesser charge, and I was eventually granted a pretrial release, right? But originally, had my original charge not been dropped, I would have been on exactly that, pretrial detention. I would have been forced to remain incarcerated until my trial date. Harsh criminals in New Jersey are sent to New Jersey because it is a designated county and a detention facility for serious cases. So that is why John Alite is being held in Bergen County and not Monmouth County, even though Monmouth County is where all of the news coverage, all of the stuff is coming out of, and that's where he was the town councilman for the town of Englishtown. All right, so we did go over the fact that he was that some of this is rumored to be pushback for being such an outspoken MAGA person. We've talked about why he is where he is. We talked about what it means for someone like him to be able to hide in the local community or, blend in with the local community in a place like New Jersey, in a place like Englishtown. And we've also spoken about why he was given the opportunity to redeem himself and what that means. And, honestly, we hope the best for John. I hope that this is false and that everything works out for him. That being said, you can't be running around threatening people with baseball bats, and you certainly should not do it if you're being recorded. Yeah. That's it for me. It's JFlood201. Be sure to follow me on Instagram for more live reactions. And I will see you guys in the